Aw man, I just spent all of my mana on these removal events. I only have one left. What am I gonna do? That was sort of the idea behind this deck. You would use all of the removal, and then you would have a bunch of cheap characters to fill in the holes after you spent all your mana on the removal. And this is the deck that I entered tournaments with last weekend. And it kind of worked. I mean, I think in all of my games combined, I think I went 2-2-1 in best of threes, which, you know, I think makes this deck mid at best. But I wanted to make this video to share what I was doing and why and what worked and what didn't. And what better place to start than here with the Cutie Mark Crusaders. We've got 4 of each. These two get +2 on your turn from being next to one of the friends. This one gives the other two +1 always. Which basically means Apple Bloom plus one of these is a 2/4 plus an extra body for 2 mana. And that seems pretty alright, except for the fact that you can't boost these with your scenes yet. In some matchups, that's great. In some matchups, not so much. And that's going to be a recurring theme throughout this video is matchups. We're also playing, as bonus Sweetie Bells, 3 copies of this one that gets an event back from retirement. This was okay. I might even cut this to 2 or to 0 and not play this strategy at all. We'll talk about why. But the Sweetie Belle helps with all of this removal. So, of course, if you're playing removal, you gotta have 4 copies of Time for Cleanup. And then I played around with these other ratios of Training Accident and Wire Accident, and I don't really know what to make of these. This is another part of the game that falls down into matchups. And also, especially with the case of Wire Accident, did I go first or did I go second? We don't have any sideboarding in the game right now, which is, in my opinion, a problem. Because it means cards like this are going to be so inconsistent from game to game that it effectively shrinks the size of the card pool that you're actually able to use. In one of the matches that I played, I went first every game, and my opponent didn't play anything smaller than a 4. So in between games, I would have been able to, in a game with siding, say, okay, these cards aren't working out so well. And for that matter, my opponent's playing a bunch of big stuff. There's no little things for me to pick off, so maybe I even cut out the Crusaders in siding, or some of them. But that's just not an option that we have in this game right now, which is a little frustrating, and I would like to see that change. But it is what it is. And then to round out events, we've got 2 copies of Steam Therapy to just add back any other event in the deck. When the deck gets rolling, if the opponent's on a lot of like pets or spike or something like that, things that you can consistently be picking off with your Time for Cleanups or your Training Accident, being able to recycle that and make openings every turn to then go in with a bunch of your 1-cost stuff, when it works, it actually works really well. And if you're wondering, what's in the rest of the deck? I only see characters that cost 1. Well, when you're playing this many events, I went to Twilight. 4 copies of the 2/4, 4 copies of the 3/5, 4 copies of the 5/7, 2 copies of the 7/9, and here it is, 1 copy of the 7/8 because it's all I got. If I had more copies of the 7/8, I would be playing 3 copies of the 7/8, but I figured if I'm not going to get the removal off of it, I might as well have a little extra body. And these were fine. In hindsight, none of these, I mean, these are all basically vanillas. So even with all of the events that I have, these don't support them at all. Twilight's just decent. So if I were to stick with the CMCs, I might even use a different main character, even with all of those events, or change up the Twilight package. And then the last 4 characters are for Trixie. I don't know if it's the best card in the format right now, but it wins games, and when you open it in your opening hand, it loses games. So the game kind of lives and dies by the great and powerful pre-plan right now. So I'm playing 4 copies. The only other cards that I am playing in this deck right now are, to go with the Twilights, 3 copies of Found Scroll. Twilight usually really excels in drawing, but I'm just playing a bunch of bodies for their stats, so having some kind of draw power in there is really important, especially because it's so easy to get stuck on a bunch of Crusaders or a bunch of removal spells that are staring down characters that they won't work on. So being able to draw and discard, keep the hand fresh, keeps the game playable. And then the last 3 cards in the deck, if you're keeping track, I'm at 47 cards right now, and that's because the last 3 cards are Mrs. Cake. It might shock you to hear me say this, but I love this card. And the reason I'm playing Mrs. Cake, by the way, is because I would be playing 3 copies of this Twilight, but I chose Rent this month. So we're on Mrs. Cake instead. On a pier, it makes something go -2, which means it takes 3 5s and 4 6s and makes them eligible targets for Time for Cleanup. It takes 4 cost things and makes them targets, and 5 cost things and makes them targets for Training Accident. It can also just shrink something enough that it can run over it by itself. All pretty good things. You might be shocked to hear me say, I was happy almost every time I saw this card. Go Mrs. Cake. But yeah, I mean, other than that, you know, we're playing Twilight, so there you go. 15 Golden Oak Library, what do you want? Oh, and I guess I was on 2 Training Accident. It was in with my scenes. That's fine. 2 Training Accident and 2 Wire Accident. It doesn't matter. The cards aren't good unless there's siding available. Because if you're playing, like I said, if you're playing against decks that have a bunch of pets, that have a bunch of little sidekicks, or even just 1-cost stuff, then the Crusaders are going to do pretty well against that. Your removal spells are going to do pretty good against that. But if your opponent is just staying super, super strictly on curve with just turn 2, I'm going to put out a 2-4. Turn 3, I'm going to put out a 3-5. Turn 4, I'm going to put out a 4-6. This deck really, really struggles against that, unless you get so lucky that you draw all of your Twilights on curve to match, which is not very likely. So, with the way the game is right now, I don't think this is very good. I mean, I won as many matches as I lost. There was a draw in there, too. I don't know. Oh, yeah. We also have, cannot forget, our story cards. Ticketmaster. Draw a card. Cool. Twilight gets +2. Pretty usable. Add a scene. Holy crap, that's pretty good, too. Yeah, I'm happy with the story. There's nothing crazy about that. But yeah, being in a format that doesn't allow siding means that you have to be prepared for everything in the main deck. And the problem with that is, it's a card game. There's going to be matchups involved. You can't expect to be ready for anything, or else you're going to be drawing into stuff that isn't going to be applicable in whatever matchup you're in. You can try to cram in a little bit of everything, but then you're going to draw into stuff that you don't need. And that's frustrating. But yeah, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there is a right way to go about doing all of this. if you have thoughts, let me know. I'm interested in hearing what you guys think, what you guys thought about the deck. And in the tournaments that I entered last weekend, I won 1 pack of Discord, so maybe I'll open that for you guys. I don't know. But I think that's my rant about not having siding and how the Cutie Mark Crusaders are a failed experiment. But I don't know. That's going to do it for this one, guys, though. Have a good one.